I'm Irina Webster, your host for Inspiring Osa TV. And today I'm going to interview Caroline Cooper. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you very much, Irina.
Caroline has written a book, The Forgotten Holocaust, A Gypsy's Journey from Auschwitz to Freedom. So, Caroline, tell me about your book and why did you write it?
How did it come about?
Yes.
I met, some years ago, an Australian Romani, and he and I started talking about the Holocaust of the Roma at Auschwitz, and it's a very little known story. There's a lot that's been written in non-fiction, absolutely nothing in fiction. This novel is actually a first, and so I resolved to put this story down as a novel because novels quite often a good way of bringing historical facts to light, and I think quite often this has been done. So this actually is a first. It's a dark story, it's a terrible story, and it's one of the crunch times of the persecution against the Roma in Europe for the last 1,000 years. I mean, it's still going on even today, the persecution of the Roma in Europe. But there was a particular night at Auschwitz when almost 3,000 of them were annihilated, and that became known as Zigeunernacht, almost the death of Auschwitz. So it's a very sad story, but the words of the Australian who I first met really resonated with me, and I wanted to bring this to light. So hence the reason for the book.
Who is actually this person? Can you tell me more about him?
His name is Brian Hungerford, and he goes out and he tells stories, and he does seminars on a day with the Gypsies, and I think he's built his own caravan, or Vado as they're called. So he's very much into that. He's a musician, a linguist, a storyteller, amazing man.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what's your characters? Can you tell me more about the characters' story, what they actually, what they go through in your book?
It starts off, because I knew England, and when I was growing up I knew the Roma who parked on the outskirts of town along the old Roman road, so I knew about them there. So it's an English Romani who was actually recruited into surveillance work as a young boy in the latter days of the war. And this is a true story, and how he was told to lead his old blind uncle through the streets of the town and look out for the English because they were frightened about the invasion. So he does that. He's also able to live off the land. He can hide in the woods. He knows how to go and trap rabbits and eat off the land and hide. He's a natural. So he is actually sent off for training, and then he's sent over to Holland to work with the partisans over there. And of course, while he's in Holland, he gets caught up in Himmler's purge of the Romanis and sent off to Auschwitz. So there he is in Auschwitz. Now, I talked earlier about the Zigeunernacht. Many of the men who were at Auschwitz were actually marched away to bolster the workforces in about July 1944. And so my protagonist was relatively lucky. The story continues. He comes to Australia. He comes to his freedom.
It is after.
This is after the war. He
War.
recovers. Yes, he recovers and comes to Australia. And of course, as he's disembarking from the ship in Sydney, he thinks he spots his Auschwitz captor ahead of him in the crowds. And so his nightmares travel to Australia with him.
So this main character of your book, it's actually representations of like your Romani friend?
Yeah, a lot of it, no, I've done much from research. I've done an amazing amount of research. Brian sparked the book, like it was the tinder that sparked the flame. So it's been many years of research putting this together.
Yeah.
And the other characters, of course, are the Nazi Guard. Whether or not he comes to Australia, it's in the book. And because it's a three-generational thing, it's Gil, my Gypsy protagonist, his granddaughter Lily, his Aussie granddaughter, and that's part of the Chiclet story that's woven through the book. She's never been told about her Roma heritage because her mother's very posh and her mother lives in Canberra, and she doesn't want her to know about her background or her heritage. And the poor child finds out by accident. And she has to come to terms with that, while Gil is trying to come to terms with his memories of the war. So, and worse is to come when Lily falls in love with a young man whose grandparents say they're from Austria. So
Yeah, it's quite amazing. So, tell me more about your research. How actually you researched the topic on internet or other books?
On the internet, through many books, and as I said, they were all non-fiction. I came across not one novel on this topic. I was very lucky to meet the director of Auschwitz, who sent me this enormous document, all in Polish. And I knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who could translate this document for me, and it's a first-hand account of the Romanies at Auschwitz. And it talks about their caravans being parked there. All first-hand accounts. I've been talking to some Italians who had DVDs of people being interviewed with first-hand accounts of their life, in quotes, at Auschwitz. Much on the internet, much book research. And also I was very lucky to be able to see some letters from Simon Wiesenthal looking for Nazis when they came to Australia. Actually to see letters from him.
Who is this person?
Simon Wiesenthal is the famous Nazi hunter.
Right.
And so a lot of them slipped into Australia in the days of the Cold War, in the 50s. And they disappeared. Some of them were denazified, as they call it. They disappeared into the country. But Simon Wiesenthal was always looking for them. And also I was shown some copies of letters from the one sole Romani who was on the US Holocaust Memorial Council. And he was writing, pleading with his fellow council members not to turn their back on the Gypsy story. So he had a hard task ahead of him.
So I know that actually the Governor General going to launch your book.
Yes, I am so thrilled. I can't tell you. It's a real huge buzz. And the day that I learnt that, I also received my ISBN number, so that was the biggest day. And to have Her Excellency launch the book is really the icing on the cake for me. So,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, so must be Governor General is really interested in the topic.
Yes. She loves books. She loves reading. She's very interested in reading for children and literacy. Although she very rarely gets time to read, so I understand. So, with that busy life.
Caroline, do you have a website for people to contact you if they want? Or
yes, we certainly do, and there'll be a lot of information on that. And it's www.forgottenholocaustgypsies.com. So there'll be quite a lot of information on that.
Right.
On that website.
So it looks like you are really historical writer.
I think so. I was always interested in history, even as a girl in England. And of course in England there is so much history.
That's right, yes. So do you have other plans to write more books about history?
I've left a couple of little threads in this book that I would like to extract and perhaps put into another novel. So yes, I've left the way open for that. And that would be very nice. And I've started working on a couple of ideas.
So it would be, you take some characters from this book and to other journeys?
I would, definitely. Unfortunately, my dear protagonists and Gil from the war is exceptionally frail. My protagonists are in their 90s now, my fictional protagonists. So it would have to be that grandchild generation and on from there. So it's quite exciting to think I can build a new life in a new novel for them.
Right. I certainly think you can. So where people can buy your book?
Through the website inspiringbookshop.com.
Yeah, inspiringbookshop.com.
So that'll be, you'll be able to purchase that on that website.
Yeah, and I assume you're available for talks about
absolutely,
books?
Yes. The core message of this book is the one I want to spread about that very little, the forgotten part of the Holocaust, that history is swept under the carpet.
Yes.
So I would like to go out there and just spread that word.
Yeah, I assume it would be very interesting for many people, like in schools, universities.
Particularly, and the young people, and I think even older people who remember the war. And it's set in 3 countries, so it's set in England and Holland and German-occupied Poland. And of course here in the modern day, so it should appeal to a wide range of readers.
Yeah, so you finished the book actually in Australia.
Oh yes, yes.
Well, thank you so much, Caroline. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Irina.
Thank you
very much indeed.